Remember FNAF AR Special Delivery? The technologically revolutionary game that is now the only FNAF game you can't play? What about the game's emails that were released during its first couple weeks before mysteriously discontinuing, until a year later when all the scrapped emails were leaked? There's a good chance you remember that, as the emails were one of the only interesting things to come out of the game. But when was the last time you actually thought about them? Probably not very recently, right? Not only are they 5 years old by this point, but they were made pretty much irrelevant by the time Security Breach released, which came out with the therapy session CDs, over 20 minutes of straight dialogue. These CDs were discussed a lot when Security Breach came out, but I don't think there's been enough discussion about them since the story GGY, which revealed that Gregory was patient 46, you know, the hacker kid who killed all the therapists, and also the Storyteller. The retro CDs basically retold everything from the AR emails that was actually important, minus the Funtime delivery service. But if you compare the two, you'll notice some oddities between them, and some things that don't seem to quite line up, along with things in the CDs that are just kind of confusing. And today I want to explore that, because I think a major and convoluted retcon occurred between them. The CDs were specifically made to change the interpretation of the emails, and I think this change uncovers the mystery of why the emails were stopped so suddenly in the first place. As a heads up, this video is going with the theory that not only is Glitchtrap the Mimic, or rather the Mimic 1 program created by Edwin, but that this was more or less planned from the start. I don't think this should be that controversial. In Help Wanted, Glitchtrap can be heard constantly saying this. These are the very first words Tape Girl says.
Hello? Can you hear me?
He's mimicking her. Also, one of the teasers for Help Wanted on scottgames.com showed a picture of an endoskeleton with the name 0RGN, obviously resembling the word origin. This picture appeared in the game itself along with other images of endoskeletons, before being removed because people connected the images to real life. The circuit board that unleashed Glitchtrap when it was scanned was clearly meant to be from one of these endoskeletons, so Glitchtrap was never meant to come from William Afton. So then, by the time of the emails, we know that the Glitchtrap virus has been scanned into the Freddy Fazbear virtual experience, and that Vanessa has become partially possessed by it. This all occurs before the emails, since Vanessa is already possessed in them. In the AR emails, there are two plots going on that eventually intersect. The first plot revolves around Vanessa and Lewis, who are employees for Fazbear Entertainment. Lewis, who works in the IT department, periodically emails Vanessa about red flag searches for odd things, like a Viking Blood Eagle calendar, the word help by itself, and how far can a human being be cut in half before losing consciousness. He also remarks that it seems like Vanessa has two sides to her, and this is all obviously meant to reflect her possession by Glitchtrap. The second plot involves subcontractors for the Fazbear Funtime service who have been tasked with removing the circuit boards from vintage animatronics and scanning them. After removing the casing from one animatronic in particular and scanning its circuit board, a virus is released and they're locked out of their system. So they contact Fazbear Entertainment for help. Then the plots converge. Vanessa, after ignoring all of Lewis's emails, finally talks to Lewis in person, and curiously, she's suddenly very interested in IT stuff, apparently talking to him about it at length. This is the point where the emails were cut off. The scrapped emails start with an account called VA, which we learn are Vanessa's initials, reaching out to the subcontractors to help, requesting access to their system. VA then isolates the virus in one place, but strangely doesn't delete it right away. And then the virus is 100% removed from the system. Lewis accuses Vanessa of making an IT email address using company credentials and reaching out to a subcontractor. She predictably doesn't respond. Then someone locks the subcontractors out, sending commands to the animatronics and turning off their safety features. This is implied to be VA still accessing the system. VA creates another address called _pizzaplex to override security protocols and allow through a data packet that was flagged as a virus. Vanessa is then shown to transfer from security to security, probably moving to security at the Pizzaplex. Finally, _pizzaplex sends the virus to all staff, disguising it as a work email. And that concludes all the emails, scrapped ones included. So, time for some interpretation. The virus scanned from the circuit board is clearly intended to be Glitchtrap, probably taken from the Mimic. Strangely though, it doesn't make sense for this to be the same circuit board from Help Wanted, since Help Wanted takes place before this. Maybe this was from a different mimic endoskeleton, since the Tales from the Pizzaplex epilogues say there were multiple mimics produced after the original. I don't know. Anyway, the reason Vanessa decided to talk to Lewis about his IT job should be obvious. She needed to learn how to make herself an IT email address so she could access the contractor's system, retrieve the virus, and send commands to the animatronics. The data packet flagged as a virus would be Glitchtrap, or some instance of the Mimic 1 program that was taken from the contractor's system. The last email from _Pizzaplex is probably supposed to be showing how Glitchtrap was sent to the Pizzaplex's system to infect everything. So far, so good. But then Security Breach came out with the secret retro CDs. Throughout the 16 CDs, we have both Gregory and Vanessa attending therapy, with the therapists constantly switching out as Gregory disposes of each of them for digging too deep. In the first CD, Vanessa is revealed to be having an encrypted conversation with someone, revealed later to be Gregory. Later, the IT department puts together a report of non-work related communications, which the therapist notes as being manipulative. The person Vanessa's talking to, Gregory, is also hacking into her personal files. Then the conversations between them get more serious. And finally, Vanessa transfers to a new location, which is obviously the Pizzaplex. This is part of how we know the CDs coincide with the emails, as Vanessa transfers at the end of each of them. After Vanessa transfers, the last few CDs are focused solely on Gregory. The 14th CD brings up the Pizzaplex for the first time, where the technicians have caught Gregory on camera, claiming he's hacked their system many times, causing problems. The technicians discover Gregory's communications with someone, Vanessa, and the therapist thinks that Gregory is actually the one manipulating her. The techs also discover security footage that shows Gregory in the Pizzaplex talking to someone with rabbit ears, Vanny. And in the last CD, the therapist reports to Gregory that there have been more serious issues with the animatronics, causing them to act more eerie than entertaining, which Gregory likes. The glitch causing this extended beyond the robots, going system-wide, infecting all the machines, and the techs traced this glitch's origin back to Gregory. So with this new glitch, we now have apparently 2 viruses entering the Pizzaplex, causing the animatronics to act up. But the Storyteller complicates things even more. And before I get into the story, even if Tales from the Pizzaplex isn't canon, the Mimic stories are pretty much implied to be mostly accurate, with Edwin, his vacuum, and Tiger Rock appearing in the games. Also, there was the recent Steel Wool interview, where creative director Evan mentioned working in dual mediums in reference to the books, and saying,
I will say if you've read the books, you don't know the full story.
So I'm taking this story as being game accurate. In the Storyteller, Fazbear Entertainment chairman Mr. Burrows installs a giant tree in the middle of the Pizzaplex, with an AI inside called the Storyteller that would generate all the storytelling for the Pizzaplex. The AI turns out to be the same Mimic 1 program that Edwin had made 40-ish years prior. And when it's installed, it starts causing issues with the animatronics, making them more aggressive and amplifying their negative personality traits. Not long after, the issues go beyond just character narratives, and the entire Pizzaplex starts having frequent malfunctions and glitches. Then, both Edwin and Mr. Burrows suffocate inside the tree, and the Storyteller is removed, though the Mimic 1 program stays inside the system, as the story Tiger Rock reveals. Before I continue, I want to explain why I think the Storyteller is also Glitchtrap, sort of. Firstly, they're both Mimic 1 programs that infect the Pizzaplex system-wide. We also have no reason to believe that the Storyteller AI was removed from the system after the Tiger Rock story, so it would be very odd for both Mimic 1 viruses to exist in the Pizzaplex simultaneously. I think what we're looking at here are different branches of the Mimic 1 program, with the Storyteller and Glitchtrap initially being 2 separate entities, both stemming from a circuit board on the Mimic, or a Mimic, since again there were apparently multiple. The Storyteller branch of Mimic 1 never experienced the minigames from Help Wanted, so instead of taking Glitchtrap as its persona, it chose Tiger Rock, a character based on the tiger plush that belonged to David, Edwin's son. At some point, I think the Storyteller/Tiger Rock must have merged together with the Glitchtrap virus. Somehow both branches catch up with each other. Other people think that all instances of the Mimic 1 program share a kind of hive mind, which could explain how the Storyteller has basically turned into Glitchtrap by the time of Security Breach. Also, and I just remembered this while editing, in Princess Quest 1, directly above the door to Glitchtrap's lair is a mural of a giant tree. This tree makes a reappearance in Princess Quest 4, right outside the elevator that takes us to the claw machine where Glitchtrap is destroyed. Considering how this tree seems connected to Glitchtrap, a Mimic 1 program, it makes perfect sense for this to be the Storyteller tree, making both viruses essentially one and the same. But here's the thing. The Storyteller program here can't be the same virus as FNAF AR, as it has a completely different origin story of entering the Pizzaplex. It also can't be the glitch that Gregory created in the CDs, meaning that we have 3 different viruses in the Pizzaplex, 2 of which are seemingly both Mimic 1 programs. We have 1 virus from Vanessa, 1 from Gregory, and 1 from Mr. Burroughs and Edwin. And all of them do the exact same thing, make the animatronics eerie and violent, and cause system problems. Both Gregory's glitch and the Storyteller are even described the same way, first making the animatronics act up, before then causing problems system-wide. So why are there so many viruses? I think all of this complication is probably the result of one big, convoluted retcon. Let's try breaking this down. Scott Cawthon obviously approved of the AR emails beforehand, so the only reason Scott would have stopped the emails in the middle is if there was something in them he suddenly no longer wanted out there, something he suddenly didn't like anymore. The emails stopped in late 2019, December, which is about the time Security Breach would have begun production, shortly after The Curse of Dreadbear. This is also probably around the time Scott started to write Tales from the Pizzaplex. Not only are books usually written long before they're published, but early Security Breach concept art shows the Pizzaplex originally being circular, which is exactly how the Pizzaplex is described in the earlier stories. And the Storyteller's explanation for how the Mimic 1 virus entered the Pizzaplex is seemingly different from the AR emails. I think this indicates that as the emails were coming out, as Security Breach was still in its concept phase, and as Scott was planning Tales from the Pizzaplex, he changed his mind about Glitchtrap/Mimic 1's origin in the Pizzaplex, which is what we see in the Storyteller. So, he quickly had the emails halted before they could suggest that something different happened. And this might have worked well, if all the emails hadn't been leaked a year later. Scott has never commented on the canonicity of the scrapped emails, so it's uncertain whether those emails can actually still be considered to be canonically accurate. My theory, though, is that it doesn't really matter, either to Scott or to us. Scott used the retro CDs to reiterate the important information in the scrapped emails and to retcon the things that contradicted his new origin for Mimic 1. In essence, recontextualizing the emails without outright decanonizing them. And so now we've come to the retcon. After the emails leaked, Scott needed to change those emails so that they no longer implied Vanessa released the Glitchtrap virus into the Pizzaplex. To do that, he would need to do a few things. First, he'd need to make the virus that was sent by VA not actually be Glitchtrap. But to have that make sense, he'd also have to have Vanessa not be the one to make the IT email. And in order for that to make sense, he'd need to come up with an explanation for how and why someone else would make a Fazbear Entertainment IT email with Vanessa's initials. Also why this person would reach out to the subcontractors and send malicious emails to the animatronics. Not to mention release some other virus into the Pizzaplex, creating a second virus that causes the animatronics to act up. I believe the retro CDs do all of these things. Let me show you. Here's why VA is not Vanessa, but actually Gregory. The therapy CDs indicate Vanessa isn't good with computers. When one of the therapists asks Vanessa if she knows what it means for someone to hack into her personal files, which are full of details about her life, a pretty straightforward concept, Vanessa responds,
I'm not in the tech department. I just type on the computers.
At the same time, the CDs introduce a separate character who actually is a hacker and is also in contact with Vanessa, with access to her personal information. The therapist says that the files Gregory's hacking into are the same files the therapist has, and we learn that Vanessa's therapy sessions are company mandated and often relate to her job. So these files would contain info about Vanessa's employment for Fazbear Entertainment. Could the info in these files have helped Gregory to infiltrate Fazbear's system? Possibly. I think it's also likely that he used Vanessa's initials for the IT email to try and frame her, which to an extent works, as Lewis then suspects that it was Vanessa who did it. VA also sends direct commands to the animatronics the subcontractors are working on, turning off their safety features. This is very similar to Gregory's glitch described in the CDs, which makes the Pizzaplex's animatronics more eerie than entertaining. It's even more similar to what Gregory does in the recently released Escape the Pizzaplex, where Gregory is constantly giving animatronics commands to make them more dangerous and attack people. But how do we explain Vanessa's conversation with Lewis about IT? This was clearly meant to imply that Vanessa pressed him for information so she could make the IT email. Well, the email itself actually provided a way out for Scott. After Lewis remarks that he didn't know Vanessa was into IT stuff, he says, "Or maybe you're just a good listener." In the 5th CD, one of the ones in which Lewis is mentioned, the same one where Vanessa says she doesn't know much about computers, she says at the end,
Lots of people know more than I do. Sometimes I need to listen.
So yeah, it's kind of crappy, but I think now the explanation for the conversation is that Vanessa just decided to listen to people who know more than her and thought of Lewis. Interestingly enough, the CDs also established that Lewis is in the marketing department instead of IT, like in the emails. Now, I'm not entirely convinced this isn't a mistake, but it could be a part of the larger retcon about their IT conversation. Kind of like Scott saying, this conversation didn't actually happen since Lewis isn't even in IT, but if it did happen, it doesn't mean what you think. So this shows that Gregory was probably VA rather than Vanessa. Next, we'll move on to the virus that VA released, which is not Glitchtrap, but instead Gregory's own glitch. But we first have to acknowledge that the first virus that was scanned from the circuit board probably has to be Mimic 1, right? It was also definitely the original intention for both this virus and the one that VA releases to be the same virus, but I think this has changed. Let's examine the 16th and final CD more closely. This CD is crucial for making sense of this and answering the question of how Gregory's glitch relates to Glitchtrap. The therapist mentions to Gregory that there's a glitch in the Pizzaplex making the animatronics more eerie than entertaining that extended beyond the robots, going system-wide. And the Pizzaplex's technicians traced the glitch's origin back to Gregory. However, when the techs tried to remove the glitch, the source of the glitch shifted. Then the therapist says,
"What I understand is that the glitch stopped being a glitch and turned into an intentional set of subroutines that were aimed at creating the same thing the glitch created. Those subroutines seem to have come from you."
Perfectly not confusing, right? I'm sure you understood all that immediately. But just in case you didn't, let's break it down. Gregory's glitch in the Pizzaplex is causing the animatronics to act up. Then, this glitch stops being a glitch and turns into a set of subroutines, or computer instructions, that intentionally mimic the effect the glitch was causing. The therapist draws a clear distinction between the glitch and the subroutines aimed at recreating the glitch's effect. It seems that the glitch was more chaotic, as the word glitch implies, whereas the subroutines were intentionally mimicking the glitch through specific instructions. The subroutines are also probably not Gregory's doing, despite the therapist remarking that they seem to have come from him. This is probably just her connecting the subroutines back to the glitch, which did originate from him. They can't be from him because the source specifically shifted away from Gregory when the glitch turned into the subroutines. And it's not like the glitch is going to turn into a set of ordered instructions by itself, so someone or something else must have done this. I think this was the doing of the Mimic/Mimic1/the Storyteller/Glitchtrap. I think when the Storyteller was first installed in the Pizzaplex, it discovered Gregory's glitch in the system and liked what it did. So it essentially assimilated the glitch and then began mimicking and maybe even amplifying its effects intentionally now, which is what the subroutines are. This would explain why both Gregory's glitch and the Storyteller caused the animatronics to act up in similar ways. Now, the Mimic was already shown to be very violent in Tales from the Pizzaplex, so it's not like it needed an explanation for why it causes things to be violent and messed up. This was all probably done as part of the larger retcon, fixing what the scrapped AR emails implied without Scott coming forth and decanonizing them. Now, if you've been paying attention, you'll notice that I still haven't explained the Mimic 1 virus that was scanned off the circuit board in the emails. Seemingly, Gregory isolated the virus and then extracted it. So what did he do with it then? I don't know. Maybe he kept the program for himself as a personal chatbot or something? The 14th CD does have the therapist saying that Gregory has developed software programs that talk to him and repeat phrases. Or maybe the newly intended explanation is that he actually just deleted it from the system after isolating it, even though the emails seem to imply differently. I don't know. Anyway, that's the elaborate retcon for how the Mimic 1 virus got into the Pizzaplex. The emails implied Vanessa had sent Glitchtrap to the Pizzaplex, but Scott changed this by having Gregory be a hacker in contact with Vanessa, and changing the virus in FNAF AR from Glitchtrap to Gregory's own glitch, which the Storyteller then replicated, turning the chaotic glitch into specific instructions. I think too many things point to this being the case, and too many weird story decisions go completely unexplained without this, like Scott randomly stopping the AR emails, having apparently 3 different viruses that all do the same thing, Gregory's communication with Vanny, the odd exposition about Gregory's glitch, etc. I think the evidence supports the retcon pretty well. Is the retcon extremely clumsy and convoluted? Yes. Does everything fit together cleanly? No. But that's because it was never the original intention, and this was probably the best Scott could do to remedy the leaked emails. Let's not forget that this was the guy who made the FNAF games exist within the FNAF games in order to justify making Help Wanted canon. This isn't out of place at all. Security Breach's entire lore is complicated, convoluted, and rough. For instance, according to the books and retro CDs, Gregory, Freddy, and Vanessa all supposedly knew each other very well, but then when the game's events come along, suddenly they're all acting like they've never met each other before. Security Breach's lore is not graceful, and this retcon is no exception. If you found this video interesting, please give it a like and let me know what you think in the comments, and subscribe if you want to be notified the next time I make a video. Bye.